afternoon. Welcome back to St George's Park here in Staffordshire, Burton-upon Trent, just next door, bathed in sunshine once again, but for how long? Well, we can't be sure, but it really doesn't matter because it hasn't doused the rugby that we've seen this morning. I'm Simon Ward, alongside me Rob Vickerman. Rob, those first two games really did take your breath away at times.
Spectacular, wasn't it, Wardy? Day two, often dealing with the ailments that the body's putting up, really difficult sometimes to get yourself used to those knocks, but ultimately the teams have come out and absolutely smashed it, looking really good in those first couple. We're expecting much more of the same for this second session.
Now, we've had a break between these two sessions, but you haven't been quiet, have you? What have you been doing?
Quite, Wardy, you know that much, but I thought I'd give a bit of insight actually, a different tack on this. I realise people listening on England Rugby's YouTube thinking about what these teams prepare like, because ultimately they've spent 45 minutes already preparing for these next games. So a bit of insight from the strength and conditioning lead for the women's, Ben Lonergan, and followed up very swiftly by one of the world's best sevens players and also strangest human beings on social media, Jordan Conroy. So I hope you enjoy these. Ben Lonergan, talking about the strength and conditioning element as you lead it for the women's GB. So many facets that make up a tournament like this, but how do you manage the physical conditioning of these women?
Yeah, I think it's been a challenge, certainly with this group. Obviously, with the nature of COVID, we've been lucky enough for the girls to be participating in the AP15s Premiership. With that as well, a lot of them have been playing Six Nations rugby. So the challenge that we've had here is how do you bed them in from, you know, the demands of the 15s game and then playing AP15s and Six Nations to now getting them ready for an Olympic tournament and getting used to, I guess, the sevens demands again. So I think that's been the biggest challenge so far.
And people watching this all around the world will be seeing very much the tip of the iceberg from the actual playing perspective. But how much preparation are you putting into these games? Are you monitoring minutes, impacts, distances? How does it work?
Yeah, so obviously with myself and Dan Howes from the men's programme, we're looking at, you know, things from GPS running loads, things like high speed running meters, total distances, max speeds, having a look at all that along with some of the neuromuscular qualities, so jump performance, looking at fatigue levels, also monitoring on a day-to-day basis things like HRV, heart rates, wellness questionnaire. So there's a lot that goes into getting these women ready for your day-to-day training, your competition, and then obviously looking forward and how do we compete them at the Olympics as well.
Well, there'll be a lot of people probably confused in a lot of what you said.
Yeah, sorry, a lot of big words there.
But one thing I want to know, how fast and how far do they run in a game?
Yeah, so our quickest girls that we've had hit so far would be hitting about sort of 9.4 metres per second. We've had 5-6 girls hit over 9 metres a second at the moment. So we've got a few fast women on the pitch.
And kilometres per hour, what's that? What we're talking, top speed?
So you're probably looking at around 34.5 kilometres an hour, 34.5 kilometres an hour, max speed.
And how far in a game are they running?
So each game, so looking at some of the metrics yesterday, bear in mind this is our first tournament for a while, some of the girls were covering sort of around 850 metres total distance in just one sort of 40-minute game yesterday.
So there we go. That is a definition, ladies and gents, of do as I say, not as I do. Thanks very much, Ben. Best luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Man of the morning and man of the moment, HSBC World Rugby 7 Series top try scorer in your debut season. That sounds pretty good. And with a strike rate of 30 tries in 28 games, it seems like you've found that momentum again. How have you found it back in the world of sevens?
It's been a long road, but it's kind of getting. It's good to kind of get back to the roots again, just kind of getting the body used to hitting lads and running around fellas. You know, it was a bit weird the first day back, just being in a sevens game and actually being up against like the pretty high, like what's the word I'm looking for? Can we start again?
High quality. No, we're going strong here, mate.
Oh, we're
doing really
well.
well.
Quality side, I meant to say, like quality players again, because we've literally just been training against ourselves, and I'm literally sick of seeing the lads' face. So it's nice to have you to kind of get fresh faces again, and you know, just kind of running at them.
Mate, to be honest, man, I've seen your Instagram stories. You are not adverse to being on your own. Some of your concoctions online are out there. How do you summarise what you do on your hits?
Genuinely, I think it's all down to boredom and just being left to my own devices. Like, there's only so much rugby you can play, lads, and like that takes about 4 or 5 hours out of my day. Then I'm left with at least another 10, and you know, you can only play so much Warzone before you get bored of that. So I don't know, I just get inspiration from TikTok and say, you know what, I could do that. I could just make people laugh, and that's what it is. Like, Instagram's about the rugby and just giving people a laugh at the end of the day, and they enjoy it, and like that's me off the rugby field. Like, as you said, the biggest biggest weirdo alive, but I'm claiming that. As you said, you can't argue, but that's just me.
Oh, it's cool, mate. It's good. I tell you what, on the field, though, we saw some pretty spectacular things. Carlin Isles, Mr. World Rugby's fastest man on the planet, allegedly. Oh, he's throwing that out there.
Yeah.
You rinsed him, hand on the face. How much is that a psychological edge?
I think it's just friendly competition between me and him. I mean, like, going back to London, I got him, and then in LA, he ran around me, and then I just, it's back and forth. I had to get my own back from LA, and I'm sure he'll get his own back, maybe later on in the season. So, like, at the end of the day, it's a game of rugby. There's just, one day he's going to beat me, some days I'm going to beat him, and that's just the game. But at the end of the day, it's all good. When we walk off the pitch, we're friends again and everything. But, that's just the way the game goes. But it did feel good, and I leave it down to that extra weight I put on over the old quarantine,
It says
momentum.
It says that whilst tensing the traps as well. That's impressive.
Yeah, looking like a kangaroo.
So last one then today, thinking about what you've done so far in this tournament, how it's going. You've got a massive month before the Olympic qualifier. What are you hoping to see from the rest of your team?
It's just literally like getting back into swing of things, and we've a lot of new talent coming through, so it's like literally getting them lads used to the game and literally just kind of familiarising ourselves with what we used to do. So literally it's just like a building block each day, which has been pretty good. We've had pretty happy results, but then of course Monaco is the big one, so that's why we're setting our sights on now, and that's literally to go in there each game 110% and go for a gold, really. So yeah, it's been good. It's been very, very, very happy results with the lads. So yeah.
Awesome, mate. It's going really well. Can't wait to see you tear up more today and tomorrow. Been a pleasure speaking to you, John Conroy. Keep an ear out for that name.
That's all, lads.
Well, one of the great characters. Two great interviews, Vic. Chapeau to you, mate. But already we were smiling when we were talking to him. We were smiling watching it back now. That is just what the game needs, right?
It's so true, isn't it? Because we witness what these guys can do on the field, but you don't really get to see that personality. So the more we get like that, the better. I think Jordan Conroy is spectacular on the field. Spectacular in some ways, off it as well, so all good.
And any surprises in what Ben was telling you? Because that was another very interesting interview, and I'm sure everybody watching will have learnt a lot from what some of his answers were.
Yeah, quite a lot what I talk about in my kind of other world, about the well-being side of things, about the monitoring, everything that they're doing, every single result you're seeing on screen here, it's the culmination of many, many things. So monitored as soon as they wake up, urine test, weight test, power test, flexibility tests, the amount that goes into it actually blows people's minds at times, because it's so intricate to how they perform. Even a day like today, where you can see how have to be up and down physiologically, but also psychologically. How do you put yourself in a position of ultimate performance and then 10 minutes later try and wind down when your heart rate's telling you something completely different? So it's really spectacular.
And in many ways, of course, that work through the pandemic has been the most difficult for those guys, physically, emotionally, mentally, to keep players on a simmer. Has been, well, must have been the biggest struggle they've ever had in their professional lives.
It's a great analogy, isn't it, the simmering, because you don't want to turn them up too hot for fear of them spiking a little bit too early, because clearly what we're seeing here, there's a massive thing happening in 2 months that many of these people are aspiring to. So you've got to peak towards the Olympics, and that's, July into August, so plenty of time to get there. But you've got to think for the men specifically, is that qualification for the Olympics in Monaco, Ireland next month. That's what they're gearing towards, and at the moment they're on a great trajectory.
Well, it's very interesting to see. We've always talked this weekend on this international Rugby Sevens tour, as it is really, how teams are evolving, how they're moving forward, how they're progressing. And this next matchup will be very interesting, both from a GB perspective and also from a USA perspective. They haven't won in 3 outings yet, and Mike Friday will be very keen to see why, what for, and what the answers are. I mean, Geezer's always one to try different things, we know that. But it's just a matter of how he's going to try and manipulate things now at the end of day 2 for his squad, ahead of course, the final day tomorrow. Let's take a look at the team sheet such as we have. GB will be starting with Tom Emery and Jamie Farndale. So young halfbacks trying to make their case for inclusion to Tokyo. Just looking to see who else is going to be starting for them. Looks like Richard Carpentier will get the start as well. And then Ben Harris, Paddy Kelly. I haven't seen much of the Scotsman from Glasgow Warriors. He will get the start as well for this one. Let's take a look at the USA lineup. There's the USA starting 7. Madison Hughes, as ever, in and running things. Joe Schroeder back in the starting lineup as we see Harley Wheeler, Tupuola as well. Esdale back in the mix out wide. So Mike Friday changing a few things, but to a certain extent you're limited, of course you are, but be interesting to see what the concoction does now.
There's many things that make sevens unique, and teams often wait 6 months potentially till they play the same team again. It's a day for these guys. So they played yesterday, they play again today. Team GB getting ready, getting set, fine-tuning. And the unique element of this, as we keep saying, is the culmination of the 3 nations brought together to try and form these combinations. Such a short window. They talk on their Mission Possible series about many teams getting 4 years to prepare for it, 4 months for Team GB. So it really is an intense environment, as the referees are also getting ready to run out as well.
Yep, Craig Evans will be in charge of this one. So just to complete the starting 7 for GB, De Carpentier, Ross McCann and Sam Packer get starts as well. Tom Mitchell will start. I think he's got a blank shirt from what I saw before.
I think his hair's just covering the number, Wardy.
Oh, is that what it is? It's the shadow. Robbie Ferguson, Harry Glover there we see with 9 on his back, and Dan Norton. Now, I mean, we know what Dan Norton's about. The world knows what Dan Norton's about. But you have to say, we haven't seen an awful lot of him. There he is with no number on his back, getting ready there. A big chance for Norton up against some speedsters in the US side.
I always like to talk about the psychology of Dan Norton. I've been his captain for a fair few years. It's an intricate mind that he's got, Wardy, and I think one of these players, you know what he is capable of. You only have to look at his highlight reel to know what he can achieve. And in tournaments and games like this, it's about making sure he's in a comfortable place, he's enjoying himself, big smiles on faces. Again, like Conroy, you don't often see his personality, and people think he's intense, and he's far from it. Very much emotive, very high on energy, and that's how he likes to play. So if he gets involved early, gets a little bit of competitiveness from some of these US players who want to try and run around him, he's a scalp. That's what he responds well to. But similarly, some of the Scottish players as well. I'm just global appreciation for Joe Schroeder's hair currently, number 5 on the left of the screen. That's slash disgraceful and inspirational.
Envy is such an unwelcome attribute. But yeah, Schroeder back in the starting 7. And with it all to do, really, you have to say you think that the pressure is beginning to build on this US side now that they've moved through into the second half of this tournament for them.
I think there's a pressure. There's always a pressure. There's always that will to want to perform. Clearly, this is a squad of 18 that brought across, that only 13 are going to get that Olympic ticket. So even internally, there's competition. And he likes of Asefo and shot there, but well versed with the 7 Series, also played in the Rugby World Cup for 15. So you have to look across that quality. The big guys, you know they're going to perform, but it's just getting that little bit of confidence in what is a pretty unique situation over the last 14 months specifically.
Yeah, Mike Friday will take his group back. They reconvene at the end of May. Then they have the quest for gold in LA up against Argentina. That'll be behind closed doors as well before they get set for the big trip.
You be ready?
For the end of July, of course, in Tokyo Stadium. Right now, it's St George's Park. If you're watching from the other side of the pond, a very good morning to you. See what your team can do now. Schroeder can't avoid the ball. And it's a restart, a start, I should say, that really could have done without.
Yeah.
A few teams doing this. Had a chat with them in the break about wanting to try out different combinations. Normally from a free kick in the halfway spot, you would take the tap, split field position, able to try a few things from that, guys. But here they want to challenge themselves with the scrum formation. Couple behind the scrum. See Harry Glover about to spin right.
Mitchell with the feed, Ferguson going left, trying to get Norton into play, but it's a bounce ball for Dan Norton. And he has to go from a standing start, but nobody really does it better, do they? They drift outside to get Harry Glover into the game. An interesting chat with Glover through the course of the break as well. Of course, he's wondering when he's going to be going to the top 14. Lovely break on the outside from McCann. Ross McCann trying to get himself over the line. Ball set back. Bowen out to de Carpentier. USA working hard on the ground just to slow that down, giving away the penalty. The tap and go from Ferguson and the easy feed to get the first try on the board. Ross McCann dots it down.
Yeah, really good to see McCann going well. It was his build-up play that was brilliant from the big staunch Scotsman. Good carrier, solid set. He got that initial burst to get them down this field position, and then the quick tap, trying to keep that tempo high. Just all too easy again here with the drawing of the wing defender, who Hughes steps in the middle of nowhere and left it wide open.
Ferguson with the conversion. Some very interesting stuff. If you haven't watched the Mission Possible stuff on the GB7's website, take a look. Really entertaining and educational. And Robbie Ferguson saying, do the simple things really well. Don't overplay, just set out the stall, set the bottom line almost. And that's what we've seen from this GB lineup thus far. Ross McCann with another try. McCann admits to being a super singer. I'm sure they'll be challenging that through the course of the next few months and weeks. Bowen working hard to stop Brown. The feed out, a cut from Hughes. They're having to work it quickly. The pressure coming on the ball carrier. Called back by the referee's whistle.
Nice play from Tom Mitchell there. Really clever tactic, having the sweeper. It's a thing quite unique to the game of sevens, having someone set back from the line. And Mitchell does it brilliantly well. He comes into the line at the end when he needs to, and other than that, we'll try and back off and almost be a general around the play. And back for a scrum now with GB ball, and again, real width in how they're playing the game.
Bind. Set. Space, no.
Mitchell out to Ferguson, and Glover picking up some pace onto the ball. 6'4" frame. He's got some impact when he's on the move, but the ball just going forward there.
Harry Glover's spectacular to watch. Very rarely will he ever die with the ball. He carries hard, tries to get that arm free, and just flicking the ball at there, not quite bouncing as you'd hope. But he's one of these players that really can create something from nothing.
Crouch. Crouch, lads. Bind. Set.
Madison Hughes with the feed. Little check step that we've become so familiar with on the HSBC Sevens World Series circuit. John Schroeder, more direct approach. And the feed is there, and the break as well. Well, the USA will be really, really pleased with that as Maceo Brown gets his second try of the weekend. My goodness me, this US team just needed that little bit of belief almost.
And he doesn't lack it. Brown, the way he carries the ball, everything about him exudes confidence. Schroeder teeing him up nicely. And I think this is one of the things that Mike Friday's done really well. Brought in this crop of players underneath perhaps their starting seven, which at one point were picking themselves, and accrue those minutes. And Brown's one of those guys that typifies the journey of many of these US players who have that rugby intelligence that's grown over the last few years. But talk about his individual athleticism. He has got everything. The step, the swerve, the pace and the power. And he's turned into a very accomplished sevens rugby player.
And the US program is a very interesting
story, really, in many ways, with what they've done, what they've achieved already, and what is coming up. And we're told that there's plenty of good young talent coming through at the next level, ready to take them further on.
And there needs to be, because Black Friday's fear at one point was that post-Olympics there wasn't a huge amount coming through, and these guys who have been together for a number of years now, like a Perry Baker, Carlin Isles, Madison Hughes, Danny Barrett, Steve Thomasin, Ben Pinkerman, real frontline players. They can't keep going on forever. So almost that cycle, that almost strangely has now been brought into the game of sevens around the 4-year cycle that Olympic brings. You need to always be thinking about next generation, and that's why many people are excited. Certainly the likes of Topolo about to get the ball as well.
Not complete. Play on.
Mitchell stemming the tide, but the US just beginning to build up a head of steam here, just around the 22. Schroeder taking the ground, but the ball presentation is good. I think Ross McCann stepping up a little too quickly for Craig Evans' liking.
And strangely, again, going for another scrum. USA have done this consistently all tournament. You'd normally see the tap, the setup, the barricade run by one of the big guys, but here deciding for a scrum.
Is it the narrow pitch that might affect that, to make that space outside, or not?
It would be if you'd think that they're attacking intelligent off it, but at the moment teams aren't really trying all that much from these scrums. So it's a familiar tactic. We're almost putting 2 people behind the scrum, as USA are here, and then last minute deciding if they're going to play left or right. But here, there is acres of space to the left of this USA scrum.
Hughes goes left, but the ball comes out to Tom Mitchell, and Mitchell straightens things up, going for the line. Nobody is going to catch the Oxford Blue. Mitchell does it for GB and puts his team back in the lead.
Well, not only that, but he's entered the contenders for the best dive of the day. Great slide on that one, and that's exactly what I say about these scrums. It's a real gamble, as in 15s, to call a scrum if you have the option of either the tap, the line out, or the penalty goal, as they could have done, but not many people do that. You got to win the ball. They didn't. Mitchell gets it, and from that position with a broken line in front of him, he is going to fly, gets those knees up, and off he goes.
Well, just what his team needed as we come to the turnaround in this match, forcing GB back on the scoreboard. And the USA, well, they had opportunities, then squandered that final one to open the door for their opposition. Let's take a look at the highlights of that first 7.
Yeah, I get it, but how do you say it?
It was the initial break from that pressure from the home side. A very simple pass from Ferguson to open the door for his fellow countrymen.
And that decision, number 10, on screen here. Hughes decides to step in. Gets left in the middle of nowhere. Very difficult to try and stop anything there, but no decision's often the worst decision. And then Brown gets the ball from Schroeder. A little bit of that left foot step. Pecure not able to stop him. And he cruises in, number 13 for the USA. It's nice and easy. Do you think the USA have not been really attacking the middle third of the pitch whatsoever, really? And when you get such good athletes that can beat men one-on-one, you can get a lot of change from that. And then, you don't win your own scrum ball, this can happen. Mitchell starts on the outside, and as soon as that line is broken, he's cruising in.
He's still got it, hasn't he?
He's still got it. He might be part wooden now, but he's still got it.
He has to do his hair up to make sure there's not too much resistance of the flow, but the main would be dragging behind him otherwise. And Tom Mitchell just has such sevens now, such sevens innate awareness to do seemingly the right thing every time.
Yeah, and actually you've got to credit the big guys up front, because he wouldn't have got that chance without winning the ball at the scrum. So just like in 15s, any back should support the play of their forwards. It makes you very favourable.
So Mike Friday making half-time changes. Ayuta I can see out there, Colin Isles I can see there. Interesting to see whether they can impact the early part of this second half. Glove up, picks up, feeds Norton. Norton looking for that cutting line. USA holding D at the moment. Ferguson throws it wide. And Pecure goes in the corner. Well, that is a perfect start from a GB perspective in 25 seconds to be on the board once again.
And it's a lovely combination of English interplay with Glover and Norton, giving the ball across to the Scots in the middle. Ferguson with a lovely ball to Pecure as he chats with the Welshman as he walks past. Almost the perfect blend of the home nations, but that's a good finish. Slides in, Asefo's challenge coming in. Doesn't need the ball in the other hand, as many coaches would suggest would help, because he just backs himself. Pecure frustrating a little bit in defence in that first half for him, but he must be happy with that, sliding in for his team.
Yep, the Melrose man knows his way to a try line. I remember back to a hat-trick, I think it was against Ireland in the Dubai leg. Right place at the right time, proving that once more. Mitchell hangs one high, and in the end Isles takes ball and Norton at the same time. Dan Norton becomes a human backpack for Carlin Isles, but he does well to set it back. And the breakout led from Leuta. It's Cavan Williams. Leuta the feed. Brown trying to find that outside avenue. Lovely step inside from Yosefo. Another one of those runners when he gets moving, just beautiful to watch. Fualu just suffering from the somewhat sodden turf. Another shower just going through here in Staffordshire.
Oh, Martin Asefo, that's a dirty carry, isn't it? It barrels into people, absolutely floor mats Mitchell. Look a bit tired, the USA team, all on haunches. Body language counts for a lot in the game of sevens. And see how they're feeling it. Clearly been through the mire a little bit with more travel than anyone else. Again, opting for that scrum. They've got to secure this. Asefo option to bounce left, and they've got the wheels out on the right with Isles.
But they go left. Little show and go from Fualo. Doesn't make too much headway though. It's good work, wrestling work from Massimo Brown, but it all comes to naught in the end.
There's most definitely a question to ask Mike Friday around these scrums. I understand these tournaments are out and out for honing, trying to find different ways and patterns, but again, calling a scrum from that option to then not particularly use that platform very well is intriguing. I'd love to know what they're trying to create. Probably not going to tell me, because it's one of his tactical secrets.
Trade secret.
But here it'd be really interesting, because you get Mitch, who's very good at getting the ball in, staying on his feet. Robbie Ferguson at your first receiver. And then interestingly, Norton in the centre with Glover on the wing, out on the far right. So Dan Norton probably expected to carry the ball a bit here.
There's a huge, huge channel for Norton to use. Now he feeds off to Glover. Glover cuts back inside. We saw his pace in the first game, I was going to say. What was the call back for there? Forward pass, maybe?
One of his predecessors calling that one, Richard Horton on the far line. Probably still able to keep up with Norton, to be fair. That's an interesting tactic. So I mentioned about putting Norton at centre. What it does is draw players toward him. The gap that Harry Glover exploits, exactly right. He goes inside the centre. So you can almost eradicate Isles from the equation because of Norton's angle. Really clever line from Harry Glover. And unfortunately got brought back. But that's how you use scrum plays to benefit you. I just don't know what the USA are trying to do off scrums.
We should have another guess here as Cavan Williams puts in. Feeds straight out to Yosefo. And Fualo waits for his team to reconvene on that left channel. Yosefo knows where he wants Cavan Williams. Not quite where he was hoping, and Mitchell attaches himself but doesn't roll away, so the US will get the penalty once again. Welmers. Leuta makes the break. The little pop over the top from Schroeder. Di Carpentier comes back for a second bite. But the door is open and it's Cavan Williams who's going to serve through for the score. Well, a couple of minutes left in this game and suddenly it's back in the mix.
A bit more like it with that direct play. You've got to feel that USA are fancying a breakdown more so than GB. And that little bit a fraction from the GB defence. Ferguson comes up, his centre doesn't with him, and that means plenty of space to find. You can see that 2 steps further, hasn't been backed up by Norton outside of him. If one goes in, you've all got to go in. If not, that can be the outcome.
And Muddy.
Well, back in, 3-point game.
All to play for. Dico Pentier does all the hard yards, doesn't he? All the dirty bits he picks up for his team. Ferguson, McCann, Norton goes a-wandering. Waits for Picure to provide the cut, provide the scissor angle. US thought they'd almost done enough at that breakdown, but it's not to be. And it's GB that will go again from halfway.
And shock horror.
Time's up. Next now.
They're going for a scrum. So just looking at personnel, looking at McCann going to the forwards here. He's looking at hooking. A couple of pillars either side of him. And again, the curators love, again, if you get any insight on these Mission Possible series, they have players who are leading the analysis of their attack, trying to come up with these set plays, be creative, and interestingly now just letting Ferguson drift to the right. So again, giving Norton that role at centre, a bit of freedom to see if he can try and trap for Glover to hit that line back again.
Mitchell invites Norton to have a go at that midfield, and he needs no second answer. Step, step, and step again. Cavan Williams is just going to watch him glide over the try line. Well, there's work in the paddock that's come to fruition on the park.
And it's tactically perfect. The first time Norton did that, everybody knew the threat was Glover wide outside to hit that line back inside. And because they're thinking of that happening again, everybody overshoots on Norton, and Asefo is left in the middle of nowhere. So clever. When they watch this back as an attacking team, they will be loving this. Norton hits the wheels, off he goes. Asefo overshakes because he thinks that Glover's going to hit back. All too simple for the man who makes most things on the sevens pitch look pretty easy.
Yeah, Norton showing the class that the whole world knows he possesses. The conversion from Ferguson has hit the mark, and the full-time whistle has gone with that scoreline that reached GBR victors 24 points to 14, and still no ticks in the win box for Mike Friday and his USA Eagles side. Well, an interesting, if I say dilemma, that's probably too dramatic a word, but there's certainly things that Friday needs to think about good and hard over the course of tonight before they hit their final day tomorrow.
And that's exactly what these tournaments are for. It's preparation. They've got their ticket. It's about looking at personnel, tactics, strategies, how you interpret referees' decisions. All of this is of benefit. But a team not hanging about, the Team GB, they're looking brilliant. Sam Picure on the receiving end of that one. He gets to slide in, looking like a police sergeant with that tash. Asefo not able to stop him that close to the line. Really like what GB are doing. They're mixing it up. Great tactic here. Norton kicking out. Glover hitting that line back on the inside. He's doing that all day. Those two looking lethal in combination, although it did get pulled back, sadly, for a forward pass. And this, I think this is where the USA have more success. It's much more targeted, much more physical, route one. And because the defenders have to adjust to their ability one-on-one, it makes those indecisions all the more prevalent. Ferguson going up, Norton not following him, and that's how gaps appear.
I'm telling you right now, I'm saying because he's going to be arm's reach. Because like if I don't get it to you right away, I'll get it behind him and you break through the line. Okay.
Another scrum option, this time with Norton knowing that Glover's there as a threat, spots those hips turn from Asefo, and as soon as two people overshoot Nort's, he's just got too much pace. I'd say in those old legs, but he won't appreciate that. He's still looking ridiculous.
We'll get an email from his dad if you keep doing that, but oh, what a quality score it was. That's the Williams score once again. But it's all going right from a GB men's perspective. They are 100% unbeaten. Now we're going to see the only other team that's been unbeaten through the course of this day and a half. It's the French women up against Ireland. Let's just take a look at the league table. That's the men's. We'll get that up to date in a minute for you. Let's take a look at the Irish starting 7. Familiar figures: Mulhall and Higgins, Emily Lane in at scrum half, Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, of course, there. Stacey Flood back in the sevens mix now. So Aidan McNulty putting out his strongest starting 7 there. Opposite him, well, we've already seen France beat the GB sevens women this morning. And there's a similarity there. Siafani once again starts. Chloe Pell gets the start for this one. Carla Neeson, Coralie Bertrand in, and Yolana Yengo again getting the opportunity to direct traffic for the French 7. As girls step up. There is the table of the women's tournament. As you can see, pretty healthy points differential for the French. But as we've said, and we will keep on saying, this weekend is not necessarily all about results. It's about development. It's about getting game time after such a long layoff, of course. And that's all into the mix that the coaches are looking for from their team or teams. Adam Jones is going to be on the whistle for this one. So looking to see, there's a few strappings appeared. Siafani with her right thigh strapped already. It's inevitable wear and tear, I guess, from the weekend thus far. There's another Coralie Bertrand trying to get the feed away. Siafani, no way through there. Call goes to France anyway. Oh, good tackle coming across there from Megan Burns. Set her sights and made sure there was no way they were going through. The ball comes free for Ireland, and it comes free for Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, and you know what the result is going to be then.
So often spearheads the attack for this Irish team. So many tries, so many similar shots on screen of her breaking a line and then just going to Tobo. 2 tacklers split through the middle. One of the longest names on the series, one of the best players, Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe. Consistently outstanding for this Irish team.
The great thing is, from a commentary point of view, you always seem to have long enough to say it, because she's always going in from 30 metres plus, or seems to be.
It's the rhythm. I like the rhythm of it. Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, fantastic. She's got the fend. As we said before, her endurance is brilliant. Not just once or twice you see this in a game. It's often 3 or 4. Must have 3 lungs.
Well, yesterday's match between these two ended up with just a 2-point difference. Murphy-Crowe getting the 2 tries for the Irish. Carla Neeson getting a brace for the French. Bertrand. Thrown wide and wider. Neeson being hemmed into her own 22. Chloe Pell up in support. Great leg drive from Pell.
She's so good at that, isn't she? Always takes her team forward. Bullocking runs time after time for Pell.
Siafani appearing in midfield now. Dragged down by Stacey Flood. Around the outside comes Neeson. No, she doesn't have the pace to make too much headway, but calm play from Neeson to set things up so that her team can go again. And it goes to Bertrand, but yeah, the passes just didn't have the right line there. You could see it was edging further forward.
Yeah, the lateral running, that's the thing that was frustrate coaches watching this, that if you run straighter, your defenders have to hold for it, whereas if you go lateral, to make the pass a little bit easier is why people do it, but it just means the defenders can float, and also it's much more of a difficult pass. You just really shame that you don't get to see Farney just go, because when she's got ball in hand, she's one of the most devastating runners, certainly here, but also on the HSBC World 7 Series circuit. She is formidable attacker.
Feed from Emily Lane, just exploring opportunities but losing the ball. Oh, the offload from Bertrand. You could see that Yango had nobody in front of her.
A few errors do creep into these French women's team and how they play, but they're so good at scoring from nothing. They don't need a massive amount of ball, and they're slightly fortuitous there to get the ball called back, because it did seem as though advantage was over. But either way, they've now got the scrum. I want to see some of these fantastic ladies ball in hand and just going for it.
It is in rugby folklore, isn't it, that the jouet applies to French rugby, whether it's 7s or 15s. Is that true? Is that evident?
Well, I think Fiji might have something to say about that one in 7s, but certainly...
I'm not saying they're the only team, but it does seem to be innate in the way they play. Here comes Siafani, stepping back inside, looking for the offload. The boot on the ball, and it works really well. And France get over for the score from Nasira Condé.
Just on that point, Wood, it kind of adds to the frustration a bit, because if you think of the game of 7s and what it entails with offloads, high-paced running and fantastic rugby players transitioning to the game, you'd think there would be more French players really stepping up. At this point in time, as good as this French ladies team have been here this weekend of the Red Bull 7s, they haven't yet qualified for the Olympics. So there's a big barrier in them getting there, and certainly Monaco, the pressure will be on them, because as you see today, they've been unbeaten in this tournament, and they should be doing better consistently across the series.
Yes, that has been a frustration with French rugby, as you say, in all sorts of formats, but we've seen it particularly in the men's 15s with the way that they've developed from their under-20s. They say the women's team will work in a similar progression with the Six Nations and World Cup coming up, of course. Now we're going to see how the 7s teams is developing, how they're working. Good tackle from Condé. Ireland trying to work things and open the door, but in the end, Emily Lane has to take the contact. Looking on that short side with Stacey Flood, player of the match in the Six Nations game against Italy, talking about 15s. Murphy Crowe also involved in that game, as was Eve Higgins. Higgins feeds out to Stacey Flood. Flood with a canter towards the try line. And Ireland heads up rugby, looking at what was on, and Flood finishing off.
Oh, didn't she do well? Transitioning back into 7s to 15s, which from personal recollection is not easy. And she does it a plum. Only thing I would say is she could have got back up and ran under the post there, because there was no one near her when she slid in. But this is great endeavour and effort from this Irish team, keeping the ball in their own quarter well, and then managing to free up that space out on the left. Open field in front of you, not always the best thing to see if you are one of the forwards, but she slides here, and as the defender goes past her at this point, she had absolutely every right to get back up and run under the sticks, but thought, no, that'll do me.
That door opened by Eve Higgins, and her awareness and her general development, both in 7s and 15s. Look, you could see immediately what was on, pulling the defender out of position.
Guerrier might well say that her falling did contribute as well at the breakdown, but this Irish team certainly have got grit and abundance, haven't they?
And they've got the lead right now against the only unbeaten team in their tournament. Plenty to play for, of course. Yengo, the Wren playmaker, just biding her time. Pell, Siafani. Good defence from Ireland. My goodness me, they scuttled hard to close that door, didn't they?
Oh, what a lasso tackle that was, round the ankles, going nowhere. Slightly thuggish kick, but the ball's gone out.
Well, having tried to get Sean, the cameraman, they've missed, so they're going to weigh up their options for the second half as the half-time whistle goes. 12-7 lead for the girls in green. Well, a fascinating tactical encounter through that first 7 minutes. How that's going to develop over the final 7, we shall wait and see. But here's some of the highlights from that first half. Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe showing good strength as well as pace and awareness to drive through the tacklers. See a couple of tacklers dropping off there, but Murphy-Crowe is not going to be stopped.
Anything the Irish to do, so can the French. Big run on the outside, that's what we like to see. Siafani just taking people, and then slightly fortuitous, but it all counts.
Well, good footballing skills from Nasira Condé. In support of her flying winger Siafani and making sure it finished off. But that, of course, was not the most decisive play of that second half.
And 5 French ladies around the breakdown. Can't do much about this. The pick blind, the good offload after buying in the defender. And Flood opens the gates.
Very good. How long have you been waiting for that one?
I like this. This summarises this effort from Ireland. They've got one of the most potent attackers against them, and it's textbook for Mulhall. Round the ankles. That's how you stop these French pillars. That's not how you clear. I said sorry, look,
you don't need to say sorry,
about
Brittany.
that. Oh, I just love the Irish. They're
Just
brilliant.
go a little bit higher. There may be a prize on offer if you manage to get him in the second half. Second half that kicks off with Yolanda Yengo. Lucy Mulhall, I'm in the Mulhall fan club along with Eve Higgins. I think they are remarkable players. She is, we talk about the heartbeat of a team, we talk about the talisman of a team. She is everything. And, you know, you can talk about Murphy-Crowe's tries and Eve Higgins, but Mulhall is the key cog, isn't she?
The glue, yeah, the cement between the bricks, as many people describe them, and pulls the strings in the middle so often.
Hogan. There's 2 on 1 here. They've just got to make sure it happens. Oh, good defence there from Condé. Really had to work hard, but she hasn't been able to stop the finish that Ireland were craving. It's Megan Burns who's in the right place at the right time, and Ireland looked like they botched a 2 on 1 there, but managed to muscle their way over and get the first score of this second half.
It's one of the differences of 7s compared to the 15s variant. You don't always have to commit to the tackle. You're just trying to make a decision on the ball player. So there, at that point, perhaps Akemba could have made the hit and committed, but she bought time for her teammates to get back, which was clever. As you can see, Izar managed to get back as well, but then not enough numbers in support, and Akemba made that initial tackle, couldn't then again stop Burns from falling over.
Yeah, Kemba working overtime there and being dragged inside and out by Brittany Hogan. Then, when it was set back by Lane, was thrown over the line, wasn't she, on that occasion? So, France now with a 2-score differential. Here is Akemba. Lovely offload there to Mathilde Coutouli. But holding on too long is the substitute, and Ireland are going to get a chance to maybe put a nail in the French coffin here, albeit that we've still got the best part of 5 minutes left. Mulhall Brittany Hogan stays strong, but Mulhall trying to recover things. Ricochet working for France. Jacquet. Nobody able to control the ball right now.
Oh, I thought Bertrand had lined up an absolute monster shot there, but didn't quite follow through with it. She did right to spot it, close down that space. And as Ireland found out in their first game against the French, you do have to play right to the final whistle because they're so good. They capitalise on having sparse amount of ball, and they support each other so well. Once the French make a break very quickly, those channels are flooded, and you end up rescinding toward your try line.
Kemba just trotting off now. My goodness me, she's put a hard shift in for her team. Bertrand makes the break. Anybody going to get back to snag her? Yes, Murphy Crowe brings her down. The ball just working its way towards the post, but I think that's Stacey Flood getting down and making sure that it was going to be coming back greenside.
Massive, massive raps once again. Emily Murphy Crowe. I said in the first half, she is one of the fittest players in this squad. Her power, endurance, her ability to have repeat speed is just fantastic, and she was the reason why the French didn't score there. Her commitment, her endeavour to get back, you can see she looks exhausted. But what an effort. Mulhall again, as well with her. That's what wins your games, it's effort on effort, running back when nobody else would. It gets noticed.
So Ireland just settling themselves down. Oh, we've got the fly past as well from the airfield next door. Very nice of them to organise that on a Sunday.
Just for the aerial shots. Looking good.
Most people use drones. The penalty's going against France now, and I think somebody's going to see yellow. It's Shannon Izar.
I hope she's all right. It's a massive conversation. We luckily haven't had to have Wardy. But in these types of tournaments, when you know there's a massive month coming up, in the back of your mind, you can't help but feel, just hope people avoid injury. Because anything now could potentially curtail both these teams going towards the Monaco Repage qualification process in Monaco next month.
And I think that's Brittany Hogan has taken the impact there. Let's just take a look. Contesting in the line out. Just pulling her down off balance.
It's a long way down, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talk about the proprioception there of players trying to land flat-footed. So difficult when there's a collision in the air of any type. It's one of those, probably might feel a lot worse tomorrow. Your adrenaline's flying right now. She's got a limp already. Well, we've seen in both 15s and 7s. Flood's made her tough stuff.
I think actually that was Hyan Jason. That was the miscreant, so to speak, on that occasion. So the wind might be in Ireland's faces, but it's definitely in their sails in this match.
Well, finally, seeing people kick to touch-off penalties. Spent the whole day watching men's games, taking scrums for their restart option. This is absolutely beneficial for this Irish team. Good set piece, but should now lose the line out because I've jinxed it. But using that platform and getting the backs with ball in hand.
First phase possession, the little drop over the top doesn't quite work though. Good pressure from the French defenders there, right up in Irish faces.
Right decision, just not quite executed properly. See the forwards giving great ball to the backs, but not able to capitalise because of the error in the pass. Now the French looking a long way from the try line, but we know just how good their backs are with the ball in hand.
Break from around the edge, but it's Coley Bertrand going into a green cul-de-sac there. Look at the defence, the determination from Kate Farrell-McCabe and co. Working so hard off the ball.
And you have to, said before, they had their lesson very much learnt in the first time against the French, getting pipped right at the post, but there, 5 people committing to that effort around that tackle. They look fit, they look well drilled, they look up for it. See if they can finish with a nice moment of this set-piece play.
Not quite going to plan, it has to be said, but they're still going to get the put in from a French knock-on, and that French unbeaten record is going to go, it would appear. 10 seconds left on the clock.
And absolutely rightly, I think this has been a great performance for the Irish. People watching this, supporting the green colours, they'll be happy in what they're seeing. Coaches looking on as a squad effort. This has been by far their best performance.
Well, Hall changes the options with a little dab over for her mate, Murphy-Crowe. And you know what's going to happen now. Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe goes over for her 5th try of the weekend. And that is icing on a very tasty cake for the ladies from Ireland.
And it seems obvious that if this Irish team are performing, the 2 teams you're going to hear more than others, Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe and the back of Mulhall's great work. They're committed in their defence, which I think sets them apart as individual players, but the way they can interact as a combination.
Well, she scored 2 against the French yesterday to start things off. She's done it again today. It's a slightly different outcome, though, with the final kick from Eve Higgins. Sends it on its way, but not challenging the post, but my goodness me, that is a very big win for Ireland. They will be so satisfied with that.
And that's what you want. It's accumulation of progress. It's executing a plan. And look at the reactions. Big smiles on faces. Good energy in the squad. Exhausted their energy reserves in that game. But as I say, that was a really accomplished performance from the Irish women.
Well, coming up next at 4 o'clock, we've got a GB against Ireland doubleheader. Be very interesting to see how Ireland press on from this game in the women's section, and indeed in the men's, because of course the Irish men had a very good win over the USA this morning. So join us later on if you will. As I say, 4 o'clock will be kick-off of the next game. And myself, Simon Ward and Rob Vickerman, looking forward to your company then. See you later.